my biggest concern is this business of committees. And I am just shocked by that. I've never been in an organization that has not operated more efficiently and won't work without committees. And I understand Counsel has recommended that we, in fact, do not have committee meetings because of good old Ralph. And Ralph Brown Act.
Ralph and Brown.
Ralph is okay, and it's important that people have a chance to debate what we're doing here. But with respect to committees such as utilities, the Finance Committee, I just can't imagine it being appropriate to not having them. And I have questions, I guess, for Counsel that how many other organizations are doing exactly this, whether it be cities or special districts or schools?
I need to clarify, I'm not recommending against committees. I'm simply pointing out the expense involved in having to notice them and comply with other Brown Act requirements.
Well,
there are many other organizations who are reducing the scope of their committees. But again, eliminating them, that's a policy decision that the board holds.
well, for instance, the WEAC, that's 12 sessions that they've had in the past year. When we look at ad hoc, that's not something that, for instance, on the Finance Committee, that wasn't a regular meeting. And I wonder if, in fact, utilities, Finance Committee, when they are just being brought to attendance at some specific time where there's a need, if, in fact, they don't appropriately be called ad hoc versus a standing committee.
That's the nuance that
That's
is
the
necessary.
nuance. Yeah.
Yeah,
But what exposure do we really have in having separate committees? Because I just can't imagine. I mean, from the Garden Club of California, they have committees. I've never been in an organization that didn't run based on committees. And the efficiency of an organization is based on the spade work being done at a committee level before it's brought to the attention of the public and the general board.
yeah. I don't think the recommendation, at least as I interpret it, is to necessarily eliminate committees. And you're right, Director MacKinnon. It does greatly add to the efficiency of the organization to have a committee system. And I think this board has made a tremendous amount of progress because of the committee system. Finance Committee, for example, which you participated in, and all of
And
the
utilities.
all of the utilities. All of the policy recommendations that have been made, that have come to the board, have gone through the committee system, and we've benefited from it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Counsel, but as I understand it, if we have standing committees, for example, that meet routinely or regularly, then we have a Ralph M. Brown Act obligation, legal obligation, to notice the meetings and so forth, and there are expenses associated with doing that. If we have ad hoc committees that meet on call
As needed.
needed, then I think, am I correct, Counsel, then perhaps the formal Ralph M. Brown Act notification process is not necessary. Is that correct?
That's correct. The criteria in the Brown Act are a fixed meeting schedule or continuing subject matter jurisdiction. It's a fine line. There's an unlimited amount of ad hoc committees. Again, it's sort of, if it looks like a duck, it is.
Right. And the way the committee system has worked has been on an as-needed basis.
Yeah.
When Director MacKinnon, when you and Director D'Amico were first seated, we formed our committees, and you immediately went to work on some very significant policy issues. The need for those kinds of committee meetings kind of waxes and wanes, you know. So I think what the general manager is suggesting kind of fits the way we've been actually operating.
The list, as it stands today, gives the appearance of being standing committees, because you approved it and you said we're the finance, we're the utilities, which might give some confusion or lend some confusion to somebody that you have continued subject matter jurisdiction. So it's just really basically that list goes away. And I know who the interested people are, and I've been very good at involving committees. That's not the intent of this, with this policy decision.
Well, I don't see where there's a big deal when I've never heard of any other district having an issue based upon, I mean, there's issues when they violate the Brown Act, but I haven't seen a document that says, hey, this is a real problem now in districts, whether it be SLO County, whether it be the city, whether it be the school district, of having ad hoc.
They have ad hoc committees, they don't have a committee list. They don't have a standing, what appears to be a standing committee list that's approved once a year.
Let's just get rid of that list.
Basically what this does.
Yeah, I think many public agencies are inadvertently, routinely violating the Brown Act for whatever reason. Either they don't pay any attention to it or they don't understand it. Our counsel has brought this to our attention. I think it is incumbent upon us to follow the law. And as the general manager has pointed out, between the general manager and the board president, we know who is kind of operating in which sphere in terms of the very broad array of issues that the district has to deal with. So on an as-needed basis, pretty much as we've operated in the past, a committee can be pulled together to meet and deal with whatever the issue is.
Okay, I think it's important that we don't forget the word ad hoc, and
Right.
that we do have that, because it's going to come right back
Absolutely.
here, and that's going to, not that we don't have a great time here, but I mean, it could go on all evening, and that
No.
may be a little much.
Yeah, exactly.
The other issue on that same thing is that a committee is formed for a specific purpose. So an ad hoc committee to form the budget, rather than saying, we have a standing finance committee that's going to handle that as one of their
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, and I don't
So-
think we have to say that, but we can
Well,
always
but
say
I think
budget
that,
for
but I think that's
10,
the
11.
that's the proper way to do it,
Yeah.
is that to form a committee, if it's ad hoc, it's for a purpose and
For a
has a
purpose.
defined period of time. So to say something like, rather than, oh, we're just gonna turn over the finance committee, we're saying we're forming a committee of the board for the purposes of assisting the general manager in development of the 2011 budget.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly, right on.
Is that
And
more
what
like?
are you going to do with our friends from WEAC? They had 12 meetings. That's as constant as one would have.
But they have a limited duration subject matter.
Yeah.
You gave them specific
did.
direction, even though it
Yeah.
takes more than a year, but it does involve staff. We're preparing their agendas, we prepared the PowerPoint, all of that stuff.
So we kind of scoot around and play with Ralph, is that it?
Well,
Yeah.
they're
Wait,
open.
I understand.
Those
Enough-
meetings get
enough said.
posted and people are invited to them,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they are.